You ever have that moment when a show you love, like deeply love, just betrays you? Yeah, that's exactly how I felt watching Usagi and Ryuji in Alice in Borderland Season 3. I swear, I've had breakups that hurt less than this plotline. I'm not exaggerating when I say this. If you erased Ryuji from the entire season, literally nothing would change. Let that sink in for a second. All that screen time, all that tension, all those awkwardly romantic, almost moments. For what? It's like Netflix looked at Squid Game's Jun host storyline and said, you know what this needs? A copy-paste, but make it meaningless. And the more I think about it, the more insane it becomes. Because Usagi, who was written as the emotional heart of the entire series, just threw away everything. Her peace, her happiness, her future with Arisu. For the possibility of seeing her father again. Not her father, not a guarantee. Just a maybe. Tell me that doesn't sound like emotional self-sabotage in HD. Let's be honest here, Usagi's character arc was already complete. Her entire Borderland journey was about closure. About healing. She learned to forgive her father's absence, she learned to trust love again through Arisu, and she literally symbolized hope. But Season 3? Nah, they said. Let's reset all that character development like it's a bad video game save file. And before anyone says, but she lost her memories. Come on. Even if her mind forgot, her heart wouldn't. We saw it. Those final moments in Season 2 were full of peace, understanding, rebirth. So what happened, Netflix? Why take a character built on emotional growth and turn her into someone who risked it all for a ghost story? I mean, imagine this in real life. Your partner just disappears one night, leaves behind your child, your shared home, your entire future, all to go chase a rumor told by a professor she doesn't even know. Would you call that bravery or betrayal? Because I've got opinions, and they're not polite. And don't even get me started on Ryuji. This man had more screen time than actual purpose. Every episode made him look like he was about to do something game-changing, and then he didn't. He's the kind of character that makes you check if your Netflix app accidentally skipped a scene. Like, did I miss his development arc? Nope, it just never existed. But here's where it really hurts. Usagi used to be the emotional compass of the show. She was Arisu's lifeline, his hope, his reason to keep fighting. She saved him mentally, emotionally, physically, multiple times. She was the one holding his world together when the Borderlands were trying to tear it apart. And now, she's out here trusting some random professor over the man she literally saved from suicide. If that's not a betrayal of her character, I don't know what is. It's not even a love triangle. It's emotional whiplash. And before you scroll away thinking I'm just being dramatic, no. Because if you rewatch Season 3 carefully, every romantic scene between Usagi and Ryuji feels manufactured. You can almost hear the writers whispering behind the screen, insert tension here. I'm telling you. It's like Netflix thought they could gaslight the audience into caring about a relationship no one asked for. And speaking of manipulation, let's talk about why this twist exists in the first place. Because trust me, there's a secret here, one that might explain everything wrong with this season. But before I spill that forbidden knowledge, yeah, I said forbidden, I need to make sure you're here for the full ride. Because the next part of this video dives deep into what Netflix doesn't want to admit about how they mangled Usagi's character arc for cheap drama. So if you're new here, hit that subscribe button. Not because I said so, but because once you hear the theory I'm about to break down, you'll never look at Season 3 the same way again. Deal. Alright, let's go deeper. Now, let's rewind. Season 1. Remember Usagi alone in that world of chaos? The silent strength. The quiet resilience that made her unforgettable. She didn't need saving. She was the savior. She pulled Arisu from despair, dragged him back into life when he was ready to die, and reminded him that love still existed even in a place built on death. That's the Usagi we all respected. That's the Usagi who made the story mean something. Fast forward to Season 3, and what do we get? A woman who takes a random pill from a man she's known for a week because might help me see my father again. Seriously. Even Arisu's facial expressions in that episode were like, wait, are you hearing yourself right now? The irony is painful. Usagi once saved Arisu from losing his mind in a hallucination. Now she's the one diving headfirst into one. That's not poetic, it's regression. And that's where Ryuji's role gets even messier. Because if you look closely, his presence doesn't move the story forward. It derails it. He's like an emotional virus infecting Usagi's purpose, turning her once powerful character arc into a sad loop of guilt, confusion, and manipulation disguised as research. But here's the kicker. What if that's the real secret of Ryuji's role? What if he was never meant to be a hero, or even a love interest? What if his entire existence was symbolic, designed to represent the kind of blind obsession that destroyed the Borderlands in the first place? Now that's the kind of theory Netflix doesn't want people asking about. Because it's easier to sell a tragic romance than to admit your writing has holes big enough to fall through. And trust me, we're just scratching the surface. Because the next layer of this mess, oh, it's darker. It's about betrayal, manipulation, and the illusion of redemption, 3 words that define both Ryuji and Usagi's downfall in Season 3. So buckle up. Because what's coming next will make you question whether Ryuji was ever human at all, or just another ghost of the Borderlands pretending to be one. You know what's funny? The more I think about Ryuji, the more I realize he's not even a bad guy. He's just useless in a beautiful way. Like that one friend who always gives advice but never takes their own. The kind of person you want to root for. But the story keeps saying, nope. He doesn't matter. And maybe that's the secret Netflix doesn't want you to see. Because what if Ryuji's purpose wasn't to be useful at all? What if his role was designed to test Usagi's loyalty? To expose how far she'd fallen from the person she used to be? Think about it. In Season 1, Usagi was the embodiment of reason. By Season 3, she's guided by blind faith. And that's not character growth, that's emotional decay. Now here's where it gets dark. Like, forbidden knowledge. Level dark. Because there's a subtle pattern hidden in Season 3's dialogue. You probably missed it the first time. But go back to the scene where Ryuji talks about the thin line between reality and illusion. That wasn't just random philosophical mumbo-jumbo. It was the show telling us that Ryuji doesn't even exist in the same way the others do. Yeah, I said it. What if Ryuji wasn't real? Because let's be honest, half of his appearances feel like hallucinations. He's always conveniently where Usagi needs him. Always saying exactly what would trigger her guilt or curiosity. And whenever he's alone, we never actually see him interact with anyone else for long. You could argue that Ryuji was nothing but a mental projection, a leftover echo of the Borderlands haunting Usagi's subconscious. And if that's true, then the romance between them wasn't just forced, it was tragic by design. It was the Borderlands calling her back. Now, before you roll your eyes, think about this. Why was Usagi the only one having dreams about the games? Why did her memories of the Borderlands bleed through when no one else's did? Why was she the only one drawn to a man who claimed to understand the connection between death and rebirth? Maybe because Ryuji was that connection. Maybe he was the physical manifestation of everything Usagi couldn't let go of. The survivor's guilt, the grief, the unfinished story. And here's where I'll ask you guys directly. Do you think Ryuji was real, or was he just the Borderlands bleeding through her subconscious? Let me know in the comments. Because I swear this one detail changes everything. See, when we treat Ryuji as real, the story looks like lazy writing. But when you treat him as a metaphor, suddenly it's genius. Painful, tragic, twisted. But genius. Because Usagi wasn't falling for Ryuji. She was falling for her own shadow. Her trauma, her guilt, her father's ghost. And that's what makes it so haunting. It's almost poetic, isn't it? The woman who taught Arisu to face his pain ended up running straight into hers. The healer became the haunted. The savior became the lost. It's the cruelest symmetry imaginable, and Netflix buried it under a bad romance subplot. You ever notice how they framed the lighting whenever Ryuji appeared? Cold, sterile, blue tones. But when Arisu's around, the world feels warmer, more grounded. That's not random. That's cinematic psychology. They were showing us the contrast between reality and illusion. Ryuji's entire purpose was to drag Usagi back into the illusion. That's why his so-called save moments never actually mattered. Think about it, saving her at Bingo Tower. It's pure symbolic repetition of Arisu saving her in Season 1, stopping the door from closing. Symbolic again, because he's the door between life and death, holding it open just long enough to tempt her through. And if you think I'm reading too deep into it, good. Because that's what they wanted you to think. They made it look like a weak subplot when in reality, it was one of the darkest story twists the series ever pulled. A psychological trap disguised as romance. And now I'll say it, Netflix didn't ruin Usagi's arc by accident. They did it on purpose. To set up a cycle of trauma that mirrors the Borderlands loop itself. Everyone who leaves eventually finds a reason to return. Every healed soul still has one scar left unsealed. And for Usagi, that scar was her father. Tell me that's not poetic tragedy. And before we go deeper, because trust me, it does go deeper. Let me throw a question at you. If you were in Usagi's place and someone told you they could help you see a loved one who died, would you take that risk? Would you drink the pill, knowing it could kill you? Or worse, bring you back to a place where death doesn't end? Drop your answer in the comments.